Welcome to the Resilience Room, where leadership meets life and every transition becomes an opportunity. Your host is Orville Brissett, pastor, military vet, board member, and your favorite leadership coach with a sense of humor. Here, we talk real strategies for real leaders navigating change in work, in life, in love, and everything in between. Because when things get complex, we bring clarity. When life shifts, we shift stronger. So grab a seat, take a breath, and let's build legacy, one resilient move at a time. This is the Resilience Room, and this is Orville.
Testing. So listen, I'm sorry. Hope you guys can hear me now. It has been a few weeks since I've been with you. Been out taking my son to school, doing several things with all this back to school. And I'm glad to be here with you today for another amazing episode of the Resilience Room podcast, where strength is built, leaders grow, and resilience is developed. My name is Orville. I'm glad to be with you today. And I want to jump right into today's topic. Today's topic really going to stretch us. It's really going to stretch leaders in the community. And I'm excited about this topic, as I am with every topic. This one as much as the others, because always thinking about what's next. Where are we headed in this ever-changing world that we are facing? And certainly we're doing a lot more with a lot less. So I want to jump in today, and I want to just talk to us about this ethics revolution, or this ethics evolution leading through tomorrow's complexity. It's being able to have a vision for leadership in an accelerating world. I want to begin by asking you to picture yourself 5 years from now. The world has changed so dramatically that today's biggest challenges seem small by comparison. There are machine learning systems that make thousands of decisions that once required human judgment. AI, computers replacing human resource. Biotechnology is blurring the lines between treatment and enhancement. Digital platforms connect billions of people in ways we're still trying to process. And in this reality, every choice that you make as a leader gets amplified across systems, networks, communities at unprecedented speed and scale. I mean, think about it. Put something on social media, and within seconds, it can go viral. It can reach a large scale. A single decision can have a ripple effect through global markets in a minute. You all remember the impact of tariffs, of wars on the stock market and the global economy. But also, one ethical misstep can unravel decades of trust building overnight. The leaders who thrive in this environment aren't necessarily the smartest or the most connected. They are the ones who have developed something far more valuable. That is unshakable ethics. They have this unshakable ethical reflexes that function at the speed of change itself. Think for a moment. What do we talk about when we say ethical reflexes? There's a need for leaders to create atmospheres in their organizations where their leadership is trusted not because of their talent, but because of their integrity. And so when we talk about a vision for an ever-changing world, we're talking about ethical revolution. It's important that we pause for a moment and apply a great trust reset. Listen, we're living through some of the largest recalibration in human history. People are losing faith in institutions, and that seemed to be permanent for a generation ago. People losing faith in what's traditional systems and structures that have been traditional for decades, and now it's just a different time. But in as much as those things are happening, it's also fascinating because individuals and organizations that exist with genuine moral clarity are becoming magnetic forces amidst all this chaos. The numbers tell the story, right? So research from multiple sources shows that companies led by ethically centered leaders consistently outperform their competitors. Teams with high psychological safety report innovation rates crush industry averages. Organizations with authentic purpose statements see employee engagement scores that their competitors can barely imagine. Here's why that's interesting. This isn't just about feeling good or doing the right thing for its own sake. No, ethical leadership has become a competitive technology, and leaders who have mastered it move faster, think clearer, and build stronger relationships than those who haven't. Consider leaders like Yvon Chouinard, who built Patagonia around environmental responsibility long before it was trendy, or Tara Brach, who transformed how we think about compassionate leadership in high-pressure environments. These weren't moral luxuries they could afford after becoming successful. They were the foundational strategies that made their success possible. I want you to consider what strategies will make success possible in your organization. What 3 ways can you identify mechanisms or strategies for trust reset among your team and organization? I think we need to also consider that as the future is unfolding at a rapid pace, that we've got to also consider something that is called the 3 pillars of the future, right? 3 pillars of the future, having these flexible, adjustable, ready ethics. So the world, again, is moving at digital speeds. Unclear values now then become fatal weaknesses. You and I need what we call crystallized values. And these are principles so clear and well stated that they function automatically under pressure. Now, most leaders think they know what they stand for, but they've never pressure tested their beliefs against real complexity. They've created nice mission statements, but haven't built decision-making frameworks that actually work when things get messy. And the process of crystallizing your values is like debugging software. You run scenario after scenario until you understand exactly how your system responds. So what happens when profitability connects with transparency? When innovation threatens privacy? When growth opportunities require compromising your standards? Consider this dynamic of a healthcare technology CEO who thought patient care was the top priority until they were faced with a situation when improving care for some patients would mean limiting access for others. And through that crisis, this CEO discovered a deeper value. Here it is: equitable access to healing. And the clarity gained from that completely transformed how this CEO built their company's products and partnerships. The leaders who will succeed in tomorrow's complexity are those who have done the hard work of values clarification. I'm gonna say it again. The leaders that will thrive in tomorrow's complexity have done the hard work of values clarification. They've moved beyond aspirational statements to operational principles that actually guide decisions under fire. Traditional thinking about courage also has to be considered. How do we scale courage? We've got to reconsider this whole thing about courage and what it means to the modern world. We imagine courage as heroic moments, dramatic stands that require enormous personal sacrifice. But courage that matters now is different than what we thought it was. It's the ability to make consistently brave choices at the pace that modern leadership demands. As it comes, you're able to respond to it. Think of it as everyday courage that compounds over time. Every time you choose transparency over convenience, you are building courage muscle. Every time you practice long-term relationships over short-term gains, you're developing moral athleticism. Some of the most effective leaders I know have systematized this process. They've made it a system. They've identified the small compromises that lead to big ethical failures, and they've built personal and organizational systems that make those compromises harder to justify. Look at how some leaders handle conflict. Instead of avoiding difficult conversations or smoothing over problems, they've learned to lean into tension as a source of growth and clarity. They understand that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the mastery of fear in service of something larger. So we're talking about 3 pillars: crystallized values, scalable courage, but finally systems design for ethics. The most sophisticated approach to ethical leadership goes beyond individual choices to organizational architecture. It's about designing systems that make good decisions easier and bad decisions harder for everyone in your sphere of influence. This means thinking like an engineer about human behavior. How do you structure incentives so that doing the right thing is also the path of least resistance? How do you create feedback mechanisms that deal with ethical concerns on the surface and beneath the surface before they become crises? How do you build cultures where people feel safe challenging authority when they see problems? I like to leave open spaces when I'm meeting with my members of leadership team for them to share what's on their heart, for them to share, and with all honesty, I try to create an atmosphere where they feel comfortable sharing rather than fearful of sharing, because I want them to know that the design and desired outcome for the meeting is that they grow, is that we grow, is that the design and desire is to have a healthier relationship in amongst the leadership team. And so I like to leave space open for individuals to do that. So when they have problems, they feel comfortable coming to me. Now, some organizations are experimenting with what is called ethical automation. And these are systems that flag potential moral hazards in business decisions before they're implemented. Others are redesigning their hiring and promotion procedures to select for integrity alongside competence. And the key insight to remember is that while individual character is necessary, it isn't sufficient. We do need organizational infrastructure that supports and amplifies ethical behavior across teams, departments, and entire ecosystems. Listen to me, leaders. Leaders, you set the pace for the temperature of your team. You are a pace setter. And one of the most transparent and authentic ways that we can set the pace is that we are leading with the same type of energy that we want to see function amongst the team. In other words, we lead with integrity. We lead with compassion. We lead with grace. We lead understanding that sometimes leadership is listening. Leadership is learning from others. We set the example. We don't force our personal view and preference. We look to shape the organization according to the mission, and we tailor our leadership. We adjust when we have to so that the mission isn't sacrificed for our personal preferences. There are returns that exist, that arise when we lead with integrity. So here's how we break this down in conventional business wisdom. The old paradigm assumed you had to choose between doing good and doing well. Well, that framework isn't just outdated, it's actively counterproductive to today's environment. Ethical leadership creates what economists call positive externalities. These are benefits that extend far beyond their immediate ones, or far beyond the immediate cost. When you build a reputation for integrity, you don't just avoid scandals, you unlock opportunities that aren't available to less trustworthy competitors. Wow, that's serious. That's serious. That's serious. When you lead with integrity, you unlock opportunities that aren't available to less trustworthy competitors. In other words, you stand out. You become above average. And we can have mechanisms that are straightforward once we see them. Certainly high integrity leaders attract high quality talent, partners, and opportunities. They spend less time and energy on damage control and relationship repair, and they can move faster because they don't have to navigate around their own contradictions and compromises. I will admit, in my current context as a pastor of what could be defined by numbers metrics, I guess, as a large church, I don't know. However, whatever your guidelines or parameters are. But anyway, in this current context, man, listen, I am comfortable in my skin, and it took a while to get there. I'm comfortable in my skin. I'm self-aware, and so I understand over time that when we make decisions, when we are navigating through crisis, making decisions that will have the longest return, quality return, sustainable return, those are the decisions that I'm going to support. Those are the decisions that I'm going to make. But there are even more important dynamics at play here, right? So in a world where there's artificial intelligence and that handles more and more routine decisions, the remaining human choices become increasingly consequential and values driven. So leaders who have developed sophisticated ethical reasoning capabilities will have advantages that can't be automated away. And the research backs this up across multiple domains. Purpose-driven organizations consistently outperform purely profit-driven ones on virtually every metric that matters: employee engagement, consumer loyalty, customer loyalty, innovation rates, financial performance, and resilience during crisis. These are key dynamics to understand. So then, ethical leadership in the modern world isn't just about individual excellence. It's about creating network effects that multiply your impact across entire systems. If what you are doing can result in continued progress and returns on the investment and energy of what you built, then that's something that we ought to stick to. Certainly, the inverse is true, that if it's not working and it's causing harm to the mission of the organization, then we should abandon that and stick with what works. When you consistently demonstrate integrity, you don't just build your own reputation, you become a catalyst for integrity in others. You model what you want your team members to what you want them to practice. You model that. You model. You're the example leader for what you want your team to look like. High character leaders attract other high character people, creating what researchers call virtue clusters, networks of trust and collaboration that generate exponential value. These networks become self-reinforcing. They share opportunities, collaborate on innovations, support each other through challenges in ways that purely transactional relationships just cannot. Listen to me, leader. You cannot have a sustainable, healthy team with transactional relationships. You need relationships that are pure, authentic, genuine. That they've got to be relationships where you care as much about the person as you do the end result. Because over time, good relationships, healthy relationships, develop collective intelligence, capability, and capacity that far exceeds what any individual member could achieve alone. And I've watched this pattern play out repeatedly with over 20 years of pastoral leadership, 8.5 years in military service, and having been fortunate to lead divisions and to lead teams at different points along the journey. Leaders who prioritize doing the right thing don't just succeed individually, they lift entire industries and communities. Their ethical stance becomes a gravitational force that pulls resources, talent, and innovation towards better outcomes. And the multiplication happens because ethical behavior is contagious. You need to write that down. Ethical behavior is contagious, but only when it's authentic and consistent. People can sense the difference between genuine integrity and performative virtue, and they respond to that accordingly. Have you ever seen a organization or a sports team that falls apart after they brought this quote unquote dream team together, or this big three, or this big four, or whatever, this dynamic duo? Have you seen those teams fall apart? It's because the relationships aren't genuine. They're all about getting an outcome. The team, the organization can sense when it's just about a ring or it's about improving the culture of the organization. So how do you actually build the capability, this ethics revolution? How do you build this? How do you become one of those leaders who thrives in complexity by maintaining ethical clarity? Well, I want to share that you should start with radical honesty about your current decision-making patterns. Track your choices for a week and identify the values that actually drive your behavior, not the ones you think should drive it. but the ones that actually do. Where do you consistently compromise? Where do you hold firm? What patterns emerge under pressure? Next, design what we want to call the ethical stress test for your leadership. Imagine scenarios where your stated values conflict with immediate pressures and opportunities. How would you actually respond? What support systems do you need? What blind spots might trip you up? And then after you've done that, begin building infrastructure around your insights. This might mean changing how you structure meetings go so that ethical concerns are not overlooked. It might mean adjusting your metrics and incentives to reward long-term thinking. It might mean seeking out members and advisors who will challenge you to maintain high standards. Most importantly, start practicing what is called ethical athleticism. That is deliberately choosing the harder right over the easier wrong in small decisions, building that muscle memory you'll need when the stakes get higher. Remember, leader, this isn't about perfection. It's about building systems and capabilities that help you navigate complexity with integrity intact. We are certainly at an inflection point in human history. The tools that are at our disposal are more powerful than ever before, which means the responsibility of those who wield these tools has grown exponentially. The leaders who understand this are already building the future. They're not waiting for permission or consensus. They're designing tomorrow's systems today with ethical clarity as their primary navigation system. The opportunity before every leader listening to this is both simple and profound. Will you develop the moral sophistication that tomorrow's challenges demand, or will you be overwhelmed by complexities you weren't prepared to handle? The future belongs to leaders who understand that in a world of expanding technological capability, ethical leadership isn't a nice thing to have. It's the ultimate competitive advantage. Your next decision is the beginning of your answer. The world is watching, and the stakes have never been higher. Truthfully, the evolution has already begun. The only question is whether you'll lead it or be left behind by it. Thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Room podcast today, where strength is built, leaders rise, breakthrough happens. My name is Orville, and until the next time, grow stronger, seek to lead wiser, and build for the better. Have a great one. Until the next time.
That's it for this episode of the Resilience Room, where leaders like you learn how to bend without breaking and turn transitions into triumphs. Like what you heard? Follow us on Instagram at OSB Coaching and on Facebook at OSB Coaching and Consulting. Want to go deeper? Visit osbcoachingandconsulting.com and let's talk about how you can build clarity, confidence, and a leadership legacy that lasts. Until next time, stay grounded, stay growing, and stay resilient.